So, Arian, do you want to cover what we're doing now?
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone, my name is Arian. I'm a CTA, and today we're going to go over a mock scenario. So this is not the actual review board or architecture assessment. It's just a mock scenario, and this is like fairly old scenarios, like dated. The preparation time for it was like 90 minutes. So the actual architecture review board is 1 hour. So always check Trailhead Academy to make sure you know the latest and greatest on how the mock scenario, how the architecture review board or CTA is structured. You know, Chris, you know, I just pass it to you. He will present for 30 minutes, right? And then we'll have like 15-20 minutes of Q&A. And during the presentation, you know, it's just solo presentation. You know, everyone will be listening in, and then we have 20 minutes of Q&A and 20 minutes of like 10-15 minutes of feedback, right? Yeah, so there are some things that I just highlight after the presentation is done. So I put some notes like how you can prepare for the, you know, review board, and then tips and tricks, and you know, hopefully we'll have a good session.
Yeah, let me find my document here.
Yeah.
Yes. Am I
Can you share your screen?
You're not sharing. You're not.
That's what it is. That's what's on my screen.
Can you share your presentation?
Can you see it? Okay.
No, this is the direct connection.
No, but I can't.
Yeah,
I can't.
I know. You're not sharing on Zoom.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So share screen. No, I need this because I'm gonna switch between. It's not just gonna be this. You know what I'm saying?
Share the screen.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, share the screen. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So hello everybody. My name is Chris Valentin. I'm going to one second. All right. Just want to do a quick intro about what's going on, and then I'll jump into the CTA mock part of it. So basically, I've been studying to prepare for the CTA for about 55 weeks now. A little before that, if you want to consider for the prep time, just to start to say I'm actually doing CTA study. But it's been a wonderful journey. Like I really, you know, I wake up 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock. I try to hit my desk by 6:37, and I study till 9 a.m. And then after work, I give it another hour. Like immediately I transition and go back to about another hour's worth of studying. At first it was a dregs, but now I'm excited to do it every day because you learn so much and you take this stuff directly to your daytime work. Like I do that 2 hours of study, I'm warmed up. I'm ready to talk to somebody about something I just learned. And it very often, probably at least once a week, it happens that something I just studied, I mentioned that day. So just like even the business rules thing that I mentioned earlier, that was something that I came across, I was able to use at work, and then well, you won't be able to use in these mocks, but it's just one of those things you learn along the way that you can take to your business, everyday business. So what I'm doing today here is I'm going to present Galaxy Cards, which is an older mock. I want to do something very publicly digestible and pretty light and easy for the first time, because I will be up here just spilling my guts for 30 minutes. And then Arian here is going to be kind enough to pelt me with questions and poke holes in my solution, but that's going to make me better. And this is actually another step forward in my progress. So I want to thank everybody for coming out today and listening to my spiel. And if you're ready, we'll.
You want to minimize that?
Yeah, I'm going to minimize here.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay.
30 minutes.
Ready?
Yeah.
Set. Go. Hello, my name is Chris Valentin. I'm a Salesforce technical architect here to provide my solution for Galaxy Cars and Trucks. Galaxy Cars and Trucks is a B2B project within the United States. and they have a goal of replacing their regional CRMs with Salesforce. For this implementation, we're going to use single org because they want a unified business processes. They want to simplify delivery and maintenance of new technologies, and they have no compliance concerns. Since we're in US only B2B, there's no multi-language or multi-currency issues that we need to consider at this moment, so we will not be implementing that. Some of the risks and assumptions that we've made for this implementation is that there's 25 regions that this company serves in the United States. I would not recommend that they have 25 different ways to do the same thing. So we're going to apply some governance rules around that. Won't get into that in this presentation, but a little FYI, that would be in larger presentation. Also, data volumes. There was mention of 15 years worth of data. I don't, with 10,000, I believe they said they have 10,000 different distributors that they work with, and there's approximately 75 different vehicle types that each could buy. I'm going to probably limit how much you put on platform and push the rest of the data to a data warehouse. A couple of overarching assumptions. Account system. I'm assuming that there is a REST API available for accounting systems. Distributor. I'm also saying that the distributors are external, and there are 4 orders per year per distributor. Actors or the users of our system is our account managers. We're going to give them Sales Cloud licenses because they're going to need opportunities orders. There's about 2,000 of these. I'm assuming about 2,000 of these account managers. The account managers have managers, and they're going to need Sales Cloud licenses as well as TCRM or CRM analytics licenses for that set of users. They'll need it again because of opportunities and orders, and TCRM for advanced reporting. I figure it's about 25 of them. That's one per region. Our distributors, as I mentioned, are external. They're going to be Customer Community Plus because they need order access and reporting. And our vehicle buyers will be partners, and because they actually going to need opportunity and quote access. It's about 10,000 of those vehicle buyers. So role hierarchy, kept it as obviously CEO on top. We're focusing on the sales department, so VP of sales or the senior management will be in that role, and then we're going to have managers by region. So each of the 25 regions will have their management. There'll be account managers under them. Fleet managers will have a role since they're Customer Community Plus, and distributed vehicle buyers, our partner, they'll roll up to their account managers as well. System landscape goes a little something like this, starting from the left, working around clockwise. We are going to implement social sign-on with the authentication provider, and each will have their own registration handler. We're going to bring in Google. We're going to bring in Google and LinkedIn as social systems that we can use to log in with. Then we are going to have a distributor portal, which will be our partner portal, and then we'll have a portal. It's actually not pictured here, but we'll have a portal for our fleet managers as well. Then we are going to have a mobile publisher app, so that on top of our portals, so that so we can brand our mobile app for our external users. We are implementing Salesforce Mobile for our internal account managers as well. We are going to, as I mentioned, use CRM analytics and that Salesforce connector to link to Salesforce. This will be an API-led implementation. So we'll have, I'm going to implement an ESB, recommended tool like MuleSoft. That'll be linked to Salesforce with the Jewett flow. We'll implement mutual SSL, and we'll take advantage of REST, SOAP, and some Common D APIs. Let's see, as we mentioned, and then the company currently has an accounting system that'll be linked to Salesforce through the ESB. The inventory system will also be linked to the ESB. These systems, as their names suggest, deal with financing, and the inventory system allows us to track vehicles, and we'll push that data into Salesforce and update it through APIs. We have 25 current CRMs, and they will be retired. We're going to move that data into Salesforce via an ETL. I recommend to like Informatica. That'll be linked to Salesforce through the bulk API, and again using the or flow. We will implement a data warehouse so that we can move large amounts of data and also archive the existing data. Let's see. Finally, we will have there is an enterprise directory that holds their passwords and is a password store. We're gonna link that through Okta to Salesforce. Okta would be our identity provider, and we'll have Salesforce. Within Salesforce, as we mentioned, Sales Cloud, Experience Cloud for those portals, CRM analytics, and I am going to take advantage of DocuSign for their electronic signature. Data model for this, we're going to have accounts will be owned by our sales manager, about 10,000 of those, and these will primarily house our distributors. Then we have our in contacts, we have our fleet managers and vehicle buyers as the primary contacts. Let's see, we will be implementing opportunity quotes orders for that sales and order process. We'll have opportunity products to track exactly which vehicles are ordered and the quantities. So that'll be important because as we'll hear more about later, each of the buyers has their own allocation of how many vehicles they can buy of each model. So we'll get more into that later, but we'll track the allocation of vehicles for each distributor in a custom vehicle allocation object. There's each distributor is going to be in a tier which sets the ranges. So there's a gold, silver, I believe it was platinum tier that they have. So we'll track those tiers in a custom object for tiers. Oh, sorry, I got a little ahead. Let's see. We will have assets to track our vehicles. Vehicles owned by the distributor, and that is a large data volume object. So with assets, large data volume, we're going to want to implement custom indexes so that we can improve any of our any queries that we do on asset. And then also whenever as soon as a vehicle is out of commission or is no longer being used by the owner, then we can push that to the data model, to the data warehouse. Finally, we are going to be tracking and doing analysis for history of our distributors' performance. We'll hold that in a custom snapshot record. Now on to my requirements. Wasting a couple seconds here, I shouldn't. Okay, so for Galaxy cars, the ordering is done quarterly. So as I mentioned earlier, four times a year, and we set a maximum and minimum allocation for each model for each distributor. The first we have, so there is going to be a tiered preset. The tiers will be preset as we migrate into Salesforce. Let's see, there's three different stages to this process. So the order negotiation stage is the first one. Then we're going to order details are negotiated in this stage between account managers and vehicle buyers. Distributors are places in order. And to do that, we're going to have LWC on the portal where they can they can place the orders. Importantly, they'll be setting their each model and the vehicle numbers that they want. And then those vehicle numbers will be tracked by their tier range. So if the numbers, so the number of requests is outside of their allocation per model, that our allocation object will bounce off the allocation object to see if those ranges are within or without outside the range. If they're within, we're gonna go ahead and create an order and set the order into pre-application to pre-approved, so that it can go straight through. And then if it's outside of the range, there's a couple must-do steps. So if you're not that Lightning Web component, which determines it's out of range, will then in this case create an opportunity which has a record trigger flow that posts a notification message to the distributor's account manager. Tell them to go work on that. So in order to determine that distributor's current status, so if they want to increase that range, they're going to check the financial history of the distributor. So this is going to be our first integration. This will be a record trigger flow that flows the platform event. Is a fire and forget type integration. So the ESP is going to be subscribed to the platform event, and it's going to get the date. It's going to post that it's going to get the financial history from the accounting system, and report and show that put that on the opportunity. Let's see. Then we also need to have the distributor history. So this is where we use that allocation snapshot to get the analysis if they're good, within expected performance or outside of performance. They can make those decisions so that they can create an exception assessment for that proposed new and maximum number of vehicles. So that we're going to use our allocation object and create a new allocation record with new ranges, and then there'll be a approval process on the allocation that'll go out to the sales managers for approval or rejection. Then I'm sorry, it's the GCT managers, just to be clear there. Let's see. Then once they're approved, the distributors will reach a deal within the range specified. So once they get approved and we reach a deal within the range, then we're going to go ahead and that deal will trigger an order to be made in pre-approved process, pre-approved status. Sorry. So that leads us to our next stage, which is the order stage. The order details are signed and finalized. So once the opportunity goes to close one, it's going to trigger a DocuSign contract record that'll go out for signature. And then distributors must electronically sign and return in 2 days. So we're going to set the DocuSign envelope expired to 2 days. Let's see. And once the contract is received, order information should be routed. So this is going to be routed to our account and inventory system. This is going to be our second integration. So this is going to be a record trigger flow that fires on the platform event. That fires the platform event with order external ID. ESP is subscribed to that. ESP will take that external ID, do a remote calling, get the order and finance information, post that to the inventory management system, and then also go ahead and post the financial part of their data pull to the accounting system. And each system will, through the ESP, will apply to Salesforce by updating the order status to order tracking. Then this leads us to our post-order stage. So once that order is made, let's see the VIN numbers that our inventory management system gives us. They should be provided to Salesforce. So, and then we're going to mark once we get those VINs, we're going to mark that order status in transit. So that's a REST-based remote calling. and the ESP will parse that order into assets, and parse that order, yes, into assets and create assets records with VIN, with the VIN number as external ID. Let's see, distributed fleet manager should be able to track the location of the order. This is assuming that we're going to track this location in Salesforce. So that's there's another integration where this is going to be an action trigger flow. So under a button, there's going to be a data visualization type integration, which is REST based, and is going to be request reply, and we're going to do that via external service with the order external ID, posting that to an ESP endpoint that gets the reply that the ESP will hit the inventory management system and we'll get the reply through the ESP for that order location. Let's see, the fleet manager should be given 2 business days to acknowledge receipt. So once they have received those vehicles, we want to mark in that the vehicles are available. So that's going to be this. We can actually do as a SOAP call in because of the amount of vehicles that I would expect that we're going to get. That's going to be a little more than a onesie twosies that we'll want to focus on for rest. So this is so this is going to be another REST call, SOAP-based calling that'll update the asset status by VIN number. And then once all those assets are in, it'll update the order to receive. Let's see, distributors provide information to the inventory system, and Salesforce should be uploaded. I'm sorry, should be updated. So this is our final SOAP. This is a REST base that again updates the assets with whether the vehicle has been sold or if it's still available. So in order to do this implementation, we have some data requirements, and we retain copies. The business would like us to retain copies of the initial request summary. So we're going to make sure that we save opportunity and orders. Then we also need to have negotiations between the account manager and distributors. So that negotiations will be tracked with quotes. So we'll save the individual quote docs as files. We track that on the history. I'm thinking we save about 5 years of history and then put anything older than that off into our data warehouse. And then they want to track signed orders. So that's our DocuSign documents that again will follow our retention policy. They also want history of the status of each VIN. So that is basically, so we're going to enable field history tracking on asset status. You see, data migration requirements are that we're going to migrate the following into Salesforce. They want to make vehicles by model for the last 15 years available. So we're going to add these are assets that are coming in. As I said, I'm going to recommend that we have 5 years that we keep on the system. Less would be better, but that'll work. And then we'll put 10 years into the data warehouse. And then if we need to do reporting, that's when we have our TCRM and we can migrate data into there and do reporting. I see they want to migrate sales by distributor. So again, this is where that summary snapshot object that I mentioned earlier comes in. They want distributors information will come from a variety of systems. So this is why we need to make sure we're doing an API-led integration and going with robust middleware like MuleSoft. Let's see, GSC management should, did I go to report? Let's see, yes. So GC management should be able to see all data belonging to the assigned accounts. So they'll be able to do that because our account managers own accounts, and they'll get access through the role hierarchy. Senior GCC management wants to see roll-up data access across all regions. So that's why I put them at the top of the role hierarchy and then broke down the regions below them at the manager level so they can see that roll-up. SE fleet managers should not be able to see any negotiations or cost information. This is why I went with the C++ customer community license, because they won't be able to see orders, and then we won't give them, quotes, and then we won't give them access to orders at the profile or permission set level. As the distributors should see information regarding the makes, their tiers, the makes in their tier. So I'm gonna create a Salesforce library and create those libraries by tier. See, all managers use iPads and tabloids to review accounts, review account plans. So we're going to give them access to the allocation object, which is a custom object they'll be able to see on Salesforce Mobile. Let's see, distributor fleet managers check the status of the shipment from their mobile device. So status shipment will be on the order status, and they'll be able to access that mobile publisher app and go to the orders, see an order related list. Let's see, for our requirements, for our reporting requirements, we need to analyze selling trends by distributor, identifying potential upsell opportunities, determining limits, and terminate relationships. Due to the volume of distributors, the amount of cars, and the complexity of this report, I'm going to recommend that we use the CRM analytics report for that, and then we can even have actions and consider an Einstein analytics to give additional information there. And then view overall trending to readjust factory outputs. Again, because of volume and complexity, we're gonna leverage our CRM analytics and make decisions from there. So with that, I think we could have a successful rollout of Salesforce within Galaxy cars, and I'm ready to take any questions. Thank
you. 23 minutes.
23 minutes?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I thought I was going way over. So.
Yeah, let's go to your licenses, please.
Okay.
So you put, I think it was in your PowerPoint.
Oh yeah, that's what. Oh, I know. So I was supposed to go over one more slide. I missed one slide actually.
That's fine.
Okay.
For distributor, for distributor fleet managers, what was your rationale for CC+?
Because I didn't need to give them opportunities or orders. They do need reporting. So since I didn't need to go all the way out there, I kept them at that level.
Fleet managers need reporting?
There was, yes, I believe one of those last.
In the requirement says like GCT requires ability to.
Yes, because they need to check the status of shipments from a mobile device, so they can. I guess in that was the requirement that I thought that we could give them a report, but you could also give them a related list to see all their orders.
So how does it impact your license?
Let's see, if I had, they need reporting. Since they couldn't do this in a report, I'll stay with C++ so that we can have the report option. So otherwise, then I can't give them reports with customer community, or I'd have to do Apex.
We don't need these reports. Like,
if we don't need that, then I would go down a level to customer community.
Do they have access to order?
Do they? No, they don't have access. Because I believe it said that we don't want them to see that.
Okay. You mentioned like you want to keep 5 years and then keep the data in data warehouse, but requirement is asking for 15 years. Our legal team needs 15 years worth of data in Salesforce.
Okay. So if we had to keep 15 years worth of Salesforce worth of data directly in Salesforce, I guess I would consider, I consider maybe going to an option like still keeping in the data warehouse just because of the volume. If we look at the volume, there's 10,000, we have 10,000 distributors. There's about 75 vehicles that they can possibly be purchasing, and you can do it for 4 times a year, right? So based on that volume, the results of that, I thought you're going to run into lots of data issues, the data volume issues. So I wanted to go ahead and keep as much of that off platform, and then if we need, we can use external objects.
So how many records would we hit if you have 15 years worth of data?
15 years worth of data.
It was on your data model, I think.
Yes, data model. We're kind of small here. That's yeah. If we had I had it at about 5 million.
5 million for 5 years?
Yes. Let's see, asset volume 5 million. So yeah, because there's 5 million vehicles sold a year.
So if 15 years is 15 million?
So no, 5 years, no, that's 5 times 45, it's 60. Right? Did I do that right in my head? 5 million times 15, 75.
So you say Salesforce cannot handle 75 million rows of data?
No, I guess that is a good point. I think we could probably handle it more on the large data volume. I think I was trying to keep the tables, my initial plan was to keep the tables light, but considering that 75 million is within it, I think we'll probably go to a model of going ahead, if they push back on it, go ahead and bring it in and treat it as a large data volume object, making it as simple as possible, limiting automation on it, and as we said earlier, adding indexes. And
On what fields do you have to add index?
on what field? So I guess I would add a field. I would add it on.
Was there any requirement that you were concerned about performance?
Well, I was concerned about performing based on volume.
Okay.
Right. So I wanted to go in and mitigate for the large data volumes, and go from
Okay.
there.
So on your system landscape, you have a social sign-on. What requirement, did you have a requirement about social sign-on?
No, not specifically, but I believe the requirement was they wanted everybody to be able to do single sign-on for their users.
So in single sign-on, same as social sign-on?
No, it's not. But I wanted to give them, I guess it's not the same. So I was wanting to give them to be able to use their known credentials to log in. So I do see where you're going with that. I probably should change that. And if I don't need to go that route at this time, since we don't have the requirements there, but if they're.
So what's the purpose of that Okta tool that you recommended?
Okta would be there so that we can use that to have users do single sign-on into the systems. And then if they need to access the account system or the inventory management system, they can do all that through Okta.
So why you don't use directly LDAP in Salesforce?
I guess I was thinking scalability. As we grow, they plan to double in size in a year, I believe was what they said. So I put that in there so that if you want to continue single sign-on, that we're in place and ready to grow.
Okay, what protocol is the connection between LDAP and Okta?
The connection between LDAP and Okta
What is the protocol?
Skim. SCKAM. That's what comes to mind. But we can look through that. I know.
Okay. And you mentioned ESP, ETL, like what we didn't recommend, like why we need these tools. Why doesn't Salesforce have integration capabilities? Why we need ESP, ETL?
Yes, well, we want to deal with our large data volume going in and out of Salesforce through an ETL, through ETL type system. And so
Which one was the large data volume going in and out?
well, when we go into Salesforce, we do the data migration.
Except data migration.
Let's see, I was planning to move data to the data warehouse.
Okay.
So that was on a regular basis. And I think even after the 15 years, as we grow, you're gonna want an ETL to push to maintain that data warehouse connection. And again, we're planning to double in I believe a year's worth of time. So that's another one of those scalability items.
Mhm.
And then ESB, there was a requirement.
Just talk through the requirement.
Okay.
You don't have to bring it up.
Okay, yeah, so the requirement was that the distributors have many applications in which they'll be sending data to GCT. So assuming those are all coming from different applications, we want to bring a middleware in so that we can decouple Salesforce through those integrations and remove point to points.
Okay. Doesn't that cause a single point of failure if that ESP goes down? Is it a cloud application or?
Yeah, well, the cloud, yes, well, MuleSoft is a cloud-based middleware. If that went down, yes, that'd be a single point of failure. I guess it depends what level of outage it was. If you weren't allowed to do it at all, we probably would have to go through something like some manual type backup systems to take in orders.
Okay.
Per se.
So accounting system, you made an assumption that it supports API, but our accounting system doesn't support API.
Didn't support any APIs? Okay, so if it doesn't support APIs, I guess I'd try again, see if we can use maybe XML or use CSVs to take data, and we'll have to manually put it in.
So we have a requirement that talks about the account history that you use the ESP and then using API. How do you solution that?
Okay, so if I didn't have an API and I needed to push data on a file by file basis.
You need to pull the data.
Yeah, I need to pull the data. Yes, I guess I'd probably go to, assuming that there is, they're going to get data. So we're going to have to say we use a CSV and we'll have to have some sort of manual process, maybe where you could create a batch process that posts a file, CSV file.
We need it real time. So do we need to swivel chair between the system, or there is any better way of doing it?
Swivel chair is an option. I guess that's one I try to
We
avoid.
don't want to do that.
But
How
yeah.
we can automate it?
Yes. The goal is automated, but I guess swivel chair would be an option there.
So we have invested $5 million on the enhanced UI. It's like a nice Angular UI that the system supports, but unfortunately it doesn't have API. So how can we use that UI within Salesforce?
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I guess I would I consider especially if it's Angular, it's a web-based application. I'd go with something like Canvas app
How do you do that?
and bring a Canvas
What
app.
should we do for Canvas app?
Say that again.
What should we do for Canvas app? How do we set it up?
How do you set it up? You're going to create a web service. We can create a web service and bring in the Canvas app API. And you're going to use, I want to say it's Java. You use Java remote. Is that? But I'm probably going down a trail I shouldn't go down. But
Okay.
basically, we're going to have a custom web development for it.
Okay. You have the firewall there, but if you go back to system landscape, I didn't quite get that. Like, which systems are behind the firewall?
I assumed that our enterprise LDAP-like system was behind the firewall.
What about accounting system?
Yes, I think that could have gone either way. I think because it was because I was making the assumption that there was APIs available, I left it out.
So that's the inventory system that supports API. So is it behind the firewall or outside the firewall?
It's outside the firewall.
But it's an on-prem application.
Oh, then I drew it a little too high.
So if it's on-prem and it's inside the firewall, how MuleSoft or ESP communicates to that application?
Let's see, if it's within the firewall and there'll be some kind of, I'm gonna assume there's some kind of API gateway that we link to.
Is it MuleSoft an API gateway?
But they'll have, yes, actually, there's an on-prem version of MuleSoft that we could look to, and you can use both with
Do
ESP.
you want to block like inventory system API to the outside world, or like how do you configure connectivity between your ESP and inventory system?
How do you configure? We're gonna configure ESP.
There's certain things you want to allow, there are certain things you want to block, right?
Yes.
So how do you do that, allowing and blocking those things?
I guess you're gonna do that through your network infrastructure. Okay.
Let's go to a tier object that you have. So I want to point you back to one of the requirements that says distributors should only be able to see information regarding the makes their tier allows them to sell. So it's under data access requirement, the third bullet point.
Okay.
So how do you solution this requirement based on your tiers?
So they can only see.
So they say, let me clarify, there's a silver tier, gold tier, and diamond tier, right?
Yes.
Depending on who are you as a distributor, you have access to one or multiple of those. And you should be able to see only the cars for that specific tier, because your tier allows you to see that specific tier's car.
Okay, so in order to show them a specific set of vehicles or products, then we're going to, actually I had a Lightning Web component, and then that'll look at the account tier and the vehicles.
So if you don't want to use Lightning Web component, you don't have developers.
Okay, so if I don't have developers, and I'm gonna go through and I'm going to create I probably have to think about that.
Okay.
And get back to you.
Yeah. So you recommend a mobile publisher. Is that some free product that we have to use?
Is that a free product? I believe so. I'm gonna go with that.
No.
Okay. So I thought that was an okay. So then we'd have to assign the proper license.
How do you like, what should we do? Like, is it like we have like some user base based on our research, some are Android based, some are iPhone based, iOS based. So how do we? Like, should we have 2 apps, 1 app? Like, how do you do that?
So we'll go and actually we could turn that over to Salesforce, as far as I understand. They'll create the file and then they'll make it available on the stores.
Okay. And then for testing for mobile app, like, what do you do? Like, what's the publishing process?
What's the publishing process? Well, I believe we have, just as you alluded to earlier, we have 2 options where Salesforce will create the publishing code base for us, and then we can either take that and put it out ourselves, or we could turn it over and have Salesforce.
So do you publish it on App Store and then like testers would download it from App Store, or?
When you say test on my side to make sure.
Our team should test it right before we
Yes,
send it
yes.
down to the world, right?
Yes, yes. So we'll do testing. We'll have,
So is it published at that point, or it's not published?
no, it won't be published. We'll have the internal version, and then we'll have people download it, maybe use a simulator
Where
system.
do they download it?
Where
How
we,
do you send the files to the people who want to test?
how do you, they'll,
How do you install the app, or where do you get it from?
they'll install it on their mobile device, like they have iPads. So we'll get
Where
it.
do I go to install the app?
Where will you go? I believe you'll get that we'll get the file that we mentioned.
Okay.
And
You
just-
email them the file and then they install it?
Well, no, I'm doubt there's going to be an email. I believe that Salesforce is going to make that file available online, and then we'll probably download it onto the device that's going to test.
We're almost there.
We're almost there.
Okay.
And then.
I can stop the questions and I can talk about some of the things. How do you feel?
Okay.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay. No, go ahead.
Now you're in. I don't like it. Like my shortest is going up. I have a couple questions. So the tier object,
Yes.
how many tiers do they have?
They have 3 tiers right now, but I guess again, thinking forward growth, those tiers change. They start date, end date,
And
which
so
one's active.
Your data object model, we have the tier. Yeah, and so what's the architecture doing with that object when I'm thinking of something like million records, if everything's tied back to a tier, I see a point of failure with 3 records versus your millions of records. So that's why I'm just wondering if that's why you chose that approach.
75,000, no. I
So
think
it's
tier,
25 million.
I think, is at the distributor level. Each distributor has a tier, and each product has its own tier as well, so that distributor can see. So you'll have, and that's my assumption. I haven't seen all the requirements, but I'm assuming there will be a junction object between tier and product, which will tell you this distributor belonging to this tier will see all these products belong using the junction
But I
object.
don't think that was in the data model, which is why I was curious about.
No, but you're right. There should be a link between. I think I mentioned it in the requirements, but there's going to be a link between the tiers. Tiers are account based, right? So this is what. Well, because it's account based in that each account has their own tier. So that's what I was thinking. But I think you're right. A junction object would do well because then you're not talking by product. You're talking to company. Company has their tiers.
Tier and tier
and-
will tell you
yeah.
what products they need to see.
And also, you had mentioned that you're going to do some field history tracking for the VIN status, I think.
For asset
For
status,
asset
yes.
status. And is the requirement, how long do you keep your data for historical purposes?
That's a good point. It was 15 years. You only get 18 months out of there, so we'll have to go to back in the data.
I had a question on that requirement. Is the requirement to store all the data on platform for 15 years? Because Salesforce recommends for any custom object, if the volume is more than 20 or 30 million, they recommend to move to big objects. So any custom object, they generally recommend 30 million is 30 or 20 million. I don't know the exact number.
There's no number.
Yeah, there's.
When we had an issue in our org,
Yeah, it's just case by case basis. So
maybe.
there's no magic number. It really depends. There are customers of Salesforce like State Farm, big insurance companies. They have hundreds of millions of customers. So yeah. So
Yeah.
there's no set like number. So it's the case by case, and then he has to justify like why he's proposing and then how.
Yeah, and custom indexes per asset win. Win is the custom index.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking the VIN would be on the name, and that has this index
Another
already.
question was, you're making like a lot of API calls using MuleSoft, right? I was more of thinking, why not use Lightning Connect for tracking, shipment tracking, and when any asset status that gets changed somewhere else. Like we need not make the API call system, platform will make those API calls, bring those when you see the data.
Honestly, I'm not that familiar with Lightning Connect.
Salesforce.
Oh, Salesforce Connect and go.
Oh, Salesforce, yeah.
Okay.
They change.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I guess that's.
Goes back to the question
Yeah.
about the APIs are available, so how do you connect?
Yes, so just based on assumptions, there's no one like solution
Yes.
for all these, like you may have multiple types of solutions. You're
And
Got it.
justification for MuleSoft
Yeah.
was that inventory and account systems does not have API and MuleSoft is good there.
Okay,
So
thank you.
justification there is MuleSoft is needed or any other API-based
Yes.
platform to connect to these systems which do not host APIs, but we need APIs from Salesforce.
Yeah, usually, to be honest, and this is just me getting better, we always put an ESB, but that's a good feedback I'll take is now just assume that it's there and have one requirement, have that second, third level of justification for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you some hints on like how you.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead with your question.
So my last question is around, you mentioned soap a couple of times
Mhm.
because of the volumes that you were moving. Why did you soap over like bulk API?
Because because I didn't think it was all the way out to need bulk, but it was more than rest. Oh,
Okay.
So volume, I think you prefer REST. So generally used for contract based, like without someone telling you, like this is the agreed contract, you cannot change, that's when you use SOAP. Even if it's volume, REST is very lightweight,
Yeah.
so it's much faster than SOAP. So,
Unless the
unless
system
also-
can't support REST.
Yes.
Soap is the last thing I would use. So that's why I was curious by the integrations, why you had chosen that. Because the volume is not good enough reason for me.
okay.
And then the way they ask the question is this, like in CTA, is like, okay, why SOAP? Then what's the difference between SOAP and REST? Then what do you mean volume? Give me the number. Is it 1,000, 10,000, 50,000? Which one do you use, right? So they ask these kind of questions.
Okay.
It's not like, oh, REST is better than SOAP or SOAP is better than REST. And then they ask you, how do you use SOAP? Like, what do you need to configure a SOAP API to Salesforce? From a developer standpoint, walk me through how do you, like what MuleSoft team needs,
Yeah.
right? Then you have to talk about all the steps. You need the partner visual, and what's the difference between partner visual and enterprise visual. And then they can get you in that rabbit hole, and you should know. The CTA question is like layers, right? They see like one red flag or one thing that you mentioned wrong, and they want to help you fix your answer, and they want to assess your depth of knowledge, right? It's not just, oh, I'm going to use SOAP or REST, because you mentioned something that I took notes, like 1Z, 2Z, like requirement, and the volume is low or volume is high. Like, what's that high? Like, is it 200? Is it 2,000? And then based on that, they make sure you have like very crisp answers on, you draw the line, you have decision tree on which API is used for which situation, right? So you have combination of things because some high volume use SOAP, but SOAP and REST before it was like 25 composite requests you could send, now it's 200. It's similar to SOAP, batches of 200. So you can do everything with REST too. So why
So
not?
that's a
So
good
you have to
number.
go through the document. I'm going to give you some hints.
Yeah.
You are done with the question.
I am,
Okay.
I'm just gonna, Gerald, can you hear me? If you want to go off mute, do you want to ask your question?
Hello. So Chris, this is my first attending one of these, so this is awesome. And I wouldn't want to be you presenting.
But
And I just realized just how far I have to go. So I'm not going to be able to question the presentation like Arian did. Mine was a couple of points on the presentation itself. So the first one was already stated, right? Supporting your decisions better. You know, we could do this or this. We decided to go to this model because, you know, because the expertise was in-house or because this is more efficient or, so I recommend that. When you went through the presentation and you had text list and bullet points to explain the process flow, I would definitely use something more pictorial like Lucid Chart. It's just hard to visualize, and it could be my own lack of experience. Somebody with more experience could read the 4 bullet points and go, yeah, I know what you mean. So I'm not sure about that one. And then I guess the last one was the use of acronyms. And this is a question to, everyone that has experience with this. What is the expected use of acronyms? Is it okay? Like when you said, in the document, you've got RH for role hierarchy, but when you were speaking, you never said RH, you always said role hierarchy. So I just had a question around what's the proper use of acronyms in such a presentation?
Yeah, I can take that. So acronyms, usually I recommend like having a legend up top or talking through, hey, here in this diagram, MD stands for master detail, RH is role hierarchy, RCI is remote call-in. Like even you are talking through that text usually is for the candidates to refresh their memory in how they solutioned it. It's not for judges, but definitely judges would have access to this artifacts that you put together. And then if at the end of the presentation, after everything is done, they're going through like assessing you, they can always go back. And then if they didn't remember that they asked this question or not, they can see in your solution that you mentioned it. And then you may get that, requirement as something that you successfully solution. But yeah, so usually like the candidates use the same kind of acronyms. RH stands for role hierarchy. Usually judges are familiar with it. So the audience of this are like 3 CTAs that are very familiar with all the acronyms, and usually it's common between the candidates. But it's mostly
okay, so it's safe to use.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And so if we maybe do 5-ish minutes of feedback?
Yes. So yeah. So a couple of things like first, I'm going to start with the licenses. So make sure you know exactly the difference of licenses and which objects they have access to. Like customer community, they have access to orders. So that's not the justification for that specific issue, right? So I didn't ask about the volumes, like because we didn't have too much time to just dig deep into like, do you know all the volumes?
That's one of the reasons I tried to mention it too. I wanted to kind of bring up some volume points to see that, at least show that I thought
and the
about it.
volumes always change. Like when I was taking my CTA, the volumes were different. Now it's different because they have different types of sharing and visibility within different license types. So your diagrams, I mean, the system landscape, you have the firewall, but your systems are not like clear that which one is behind firewall, which one is not. And then how do you open up these, like the questions that I asked, they typically ask you these questions. Like, what if inventory system is inside your like you're inside your firewall? How do you open it up? So you have to configure your rules and network rules, and you have to have DMZ, and you have to have, you should know all these different layers of like how networks are structured.
Well, that's good to know. I had not.
So yeah, definitely, if you draw it, make sure you know how does it work, right? Either don't draw it, right? Or if you draw it, definitely know different layers of network security, and then they can get really deep in that. So when it's IL7, it's IL4, right? They can ask all these questions. You didn't justify like why you have like IDP, why you have ETL, and then I asked you about the protocol, right? So you did not clarify like what protocol it uses. I asked you, can you connect LDAP to Salesforce? And you said you can, I think.
Yes.
But you can't. So
well, you can't do an API to the LDAP and
no, LDAP is its own protocol, right? So you have to know exactly how these things work. And then what's the point of having that IDP? Just cookie cutter answer. I have an IDP because I have an IDP. Everyone uses Okta, right? Why not? So I say, why not think? Do you know the differences between the two? Is it on-prem? Is it cloud? Is it paid? Is it free? How does it work? User provisioning, deprovisioning. These are the things that you have to think through because they will ask these kind of questions. Okay. ETL and ESB, yeah, just because I want to do data migration, why not data loader, right? Why I have to pay for an ETL? You have to convince me as an investor that I need that. These are the reasons that I need it, right? ESP the same, right? So just one orchestration, and because orchestration, you can do it with, like Salesforce supports API, right? You can do microservices with Salesforce. You can do API that's going to do with Salesforce too. Why not Salesforce? Why not point to point? So you have to be able to justify these. I don't want to give you like exact answer that you have to say. You have to come up with your own, but make sure you just know, like, defend your solution, right? Don't give up. And like tier, for example, I just want to hint you on that tier. Here, you have like your sales cloud, and then you can use your price book.
Well, yeah, I didn't mention it, but I guess in my head it
Tier
was.
is not
it
an
was
object, right? So it's like exact like point for price book. Like you have different tiers. People see things based on what tier they're assigned to, right? So you can use price book, and then your make and models can be one field on the product object, and then you can associate it to the price book. That's the whole point of using that, because you use Lightning Web Component. Like you can solution all the CTA scenarios with everything Lightning Web Component, right?
Okay.
Like you can custom code anything you want. And then
But don't use that as a fallback.
Yeah, you overuse Lightning Web Components for
Okay.
many things, which definitely it will impact your solution as a suboptimal solution, right? Because you
Okay.
asked me to hire developers because you solution everything as Lightning Web Components. So yeah, you can use flows, you can use this, and then you can use price book, and you could solution it that way. Then you make some assumptions, which is good. Like you mentioned that accounting system supports API, right? They ask you if it doesn't support API. Then these what if questions come up. Definitely don't get defensive when the judge asks you, but it was not in the requirement. Say, okay, my requirements changed. So,
Okay.
or I just remembered something, right? So make sure you're calm, and then you think through the what if questions, and then also talk about the impact of that change, right? So I changed that doesn't support API, so you should remember what requirements you assume that this supports API, and then how do you solution that? So for example, that one, I said, I was hinting you that we have a UI there, that we invested $5 million on that UI, right? How do you use that? You mentioned swivel chair. I just hinted you went that direction, which was not the optimal solution, right? You can use Canvas. Then I asked you, okay, what do you need to do with the Canvas app? And then you have to make sure you know exactly how we set up a Canvas app. Definitely do a POC in an org. You can connect like one Salesforce work to another Salesforce work and Canvas it in.
Mhm.
And then you can use iframe. What's the difference between iframe and Canvas? So make sure you know all these details. So Canvas is its own thing. They talk about authentication between Canvas app, right? The two types, sign request, this.
Yeah, I know, but I thought about that too, but I didn't want to go
But
there.
then you just throw like, I assume it's Java, like you just throw some word there, which like completely, just if you don't know, say you don't know, right? Move on.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
you waste your time, and then the judges will not ask, like you cannot get a chance to ask more questions, and you probably throw something there that could be a red flag, and you lose your credibility there at that point, right? So definitely just
So, yeah.
I
Instead of
wanted
guess,
to show you.
don't say I don't know. Instead of kind of
Yes.
this is what I think it is.
Yeah.
Just say I don't know.
Yeah,
Say-
say I don't know. So it's okay that you say you don't know. My board, I mentioned I don't know, I think once. And I was going down a rabbit hole, and I knew like I'm just solutioning something, like it should be something very obvious, but I couldn't think about it, and I was just rambling, and I said, you know what, let's move on. So I don't know. And the judge smiled, and then we just moved on, right? It's totally fine. But I wanted to show you, I just took different elements of different sections that is usually assessing the candidates. I took integrations. I wanted to show you like how deep they can go in each of these sections, right?
Oh, that's good.
So you definitely have to, these knowledge gaps that you have right now, you have to definitely do POCs for yourself. Like sign up for Okta, make sure you just do a single sign on, right? Connect to Salesforce orgs, or sign up Okta, you have 30-day trial, right? You can do that. The more hands-on you do, the more you remember what was the step-by-step, because they can ask you these. I didn't go through DocuSign. You mentioned I'm going to use DocuSign for document generation, but what DocuSign? DocuSign CLM or DocuSign e-signature, right? So then DocuSign CLM, how does it work? Is it a package you install? How does it connect to Salesforce? what integration pattern it uses. If you want to update then something on Salesforce, how do you configure that? They can go that deep, right, in any of these packages. Just don't throw a name, like anything you see, for example, that is a little data sciencey, say Einstein. For this, I'm going to use Einstein. Like, they ask you questions, right? Like, how do you use it? So not everything is the first product that comes in your mind. If you don't know how that product works, don't throw the name because you can get yourself trapped somewhere, right?
Okay.
And then the purpose of judges, I want to clarify, there's not to trap you, they want to help you to pass, right? But they can ask you questions. They want to feel confident that when you come to CTA, they can put you in front of a CTO of a company that knows Salesforce inside and out, and then you can be representative of the product and then definitely have the best solution for that. Right? You have the best interest of the customer. That's the whole purpose. And then, so data calculation, your assumption was 5 years, but requirement, I wanted to ask you that your requirement is 15 years, but you made an assumption for 5 years, which is pretty much like conflicting with the requirement. The requirement explicitly says 15 years, right? Some scenarios don't years, you can make assumptions, right? But this one is 15 years. Like when you assume 5 years, that means all your data calculations are wrong, right? And then the judges can get a little defensive on like, you mean Salesforce cannot handle 75 million records? And the customers too, right? So you have to mention, okay, so on the asset object, I have 3 fields. One was a VIN number, 2 on the date sold, and then date purchased. These are the 3 fields I'm going to index. You don't say, I'm going to follow all the best practices and make sure I have one trigger. You just cookie cutter answers. These won't get you, won't satisfy the judges, right? So everyone can memorize what are the best practices in Salesforce, right? But how it impacts their requirement. Do you have a specific field that I have to index? Another one, skinny table. Like you just throw a skinny table, then they ask you all the questions like how a skinny table works, what is happening behind the scene, do you know how it's happening in the Oracle database, what is the concerns, what is the requirement, like why you say a skinny tables, right? So these are the things that you should know inside and out if you throw these words. These are like sensitive words. So make sure you choose it wisely and then you know how it works inside and out. And then overall, it's good. You're on the right path. There are some areas that, based on this conversation, you want to just go, brush up on. And then the way you diagram and present, everything looks good. It's just a matter of practicing these areas, and then hopefully we can have more sessions.
The only feedback I've given presentation is when you were going through the Word document, it seemed like the Word document was getting in your way, the way that you were presenting the words. When Arian asked you to say, don't worry about the requirements, just tell me what the flow is, you stop looking at it, and then everything we were saying flowed better. It was connected. So I think the document is almost getting in your way. So I would find a way to reference them when you need it, but not go through it for the requirements, because it becomes a little bit stifled.
Yeah, and sometimes they ask you questions and you can ask them, hey, which page, which bullet point. Usually they're numbered. These are old scenarios. I don't know the recent format site. I got mine in 2018, so many things have changed since then. So they may ask, okay, can you point me to which requirement it is? And then say, hey, go to page 5, bullet point 1.3. And then this way you can clarify. And if you need more clarification from the question, don't try to guess, ask them, can you elaborate? So it's a conversation at the Q&A session, right? It's not like presentation that you just talk and then like you can always clarify and then you can always but don't ask judges questions, right? So just say, hey, did I get it right? You can say, did I answer your question? If they have more questions, they can ask follow-ups, right?
Sorry.
Yeah, so I just kind of tailing on to this format situation, right? Of going in, right? You have, I think it was like 45 minutes where you get your scenario and to do your own solutioning, right? And when you do that, you have time to draw, do these diagrams, all this, and then do you put this on the board? Like, how does that happen?
So yeah, that's always can change, right?
Yeah.
Right now, as of now, for the actual review board, you get the scenario and it's 3 hours of solutioning.
Okay.
I think it's 2 hours of solutioning, then you get a 15 minutes break and then 1 hour.
Yes, that's
if
what
I'm not
saying,
wrong.
yeah.
Always these change, always check the latest and
yeah.
greatest, but that's how it works now. For architecture review board, which is the prerequisite for the actual review board, I think is 1 hour of solutioning. So you have 1 hour to solution and draw everything you can. Google slide is allowed,
It's only
and then
Google.
paper, and then you take photos of that, and then you send it to Salesforce University, and then they upload it for the judges. It's like a virtual machine, so you don't have the actual scenario on your computer, right?
Yes.
So I don't want to say anything wrong.
That's how I understand it
Yeah,
as well.
so-
You don't
Yeah,
get
Mine was
paper.
like in person, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so always check the latest and greatest, but yeah, you have short time to just solution something. And presentation is like judges are just listening in the way that we did. For the actual board is 40 minutes of presentation, 45 minutes of
45.
presentation, and 40 minutes of Q&A.
And so that's where you have that scenario.
40 minutes of
And
Q&A.
isn't it like $5,000 every time you do it too, right?
Yeah, and so you have the scenario, you can have your, what they've given you, the packet with the requirements.
If it's in person, right now
Yeah.
everything is virtual, so you
Yeah.
have it on the computer virtual machine. So
Okay,
you're like VNCing into another machine that has the scenario there.
Yeah.
It does it have internet access? Probably it has, but it doesn't have any tools. You don't have any.
Yeah, you don't, yeah, you pretty much get Google
Google
Docs
Yeah,
and that's it.
Google Docs and then Google, you don't have Lucy chart, like, I
Yeah.
think Luke was on the, like, who was asking the question? Gerald? Okay, yeah, he was mentioning Lucy chart. You don't have access to Lucy chart. So it's only Google. And then you can draw something in Google if the judges ask you questions. We didn't go through sequence diagrams. That's another.
Yeah, yes, I mean, I did kind of
Traffic
prep
stuff,
in case
so-
you were ready for
Yeah,
that.
make
but-
sure you just prepared on any questions they can ask. I just wanted to show you a glimpse of like
No, that's good. It's really
basic
good.
questions that I asked, right? They can go very deep in their questioning. And
Are they asking kind of like on the depth of knowledge of the choices that you're presenting? And then supporting any tools that you're recommending?
yes,
And then I think you said something that was interesting is like you changed the requirements on them and is a good response to say the impact of that change would be
yes,
hire some developers, develop your crappy
Yes.
actual or
Yes.
your app Angular app or something.
yes. And then also like data model changes is the most riskiest thing you can do, which I recommend doing if you're really made some wrong assumptions. And then when you change your data model, your security changes, your visibility changes, everything changes, right? You have always remember, oh, I made this change, I made this mass speaker to look up. Now we have this requirement in the sharing and visibility. Let me change that, and I'm going to use a sharing rule for this. And oh, I had another requirement that this object was blah blah blah. I just recommend changing that. You have to always know the impact and what are the consequences.
How tight are they to use the Salesforce way? You know, I mean,
Well,
I don't personally use MuleSoft, but are they trying to like guide you to use their tools?
I mean,
over-
they're agnostic on that, but I recommend using MuleSoft because it's like the Salesforce ecosystem, and then definitely the latest and greatest innovation, which is MuleSoft Composer. You can use like all the good stuff from Salesforce that they introduce. So I always say, hey, ESP tool like MuleSoft, right? And the reason is this.
but if you can, you should stick to core as much as possible,
Yeah.
because CTA is on the core. It's not Sales Cloud, Marketing Cloud. You can add them if you want, but you really are going beyond the scope of the certification. And a lot of us have taken many certifications. Keep in mind, what's the purpose of the certification? It's for you to be able to sell Salesforce core to big businesses, right? So you need to be able to say, here's what I would recommend, here's why, here's what you need to purchase, and here's going to be your cost of investment over so many years, because they know that you're going to be talking to C-level type people, and so you need to be able to share that information in a way that they understand it, but also have the deep level knowledge to implement it and do it well. Because if you don't execute it well, that comes back to Salesforce as a failure. But again,
Is
it's
that why you
core.
focus on?
Isn't that surprising though, when they're really pushing all the clouds and the clouds have become so
No, but
restricted?
CTA certification, right? If you focus on what the purpose of this is, it's core. It's very good to know other things and be able to lean on them. But from what I understand, it
Yeah.
really is.
It may change a little
Yeah.
bit these years because like
Yeah,
everything is
getting
about
more
cross cloud. So always say like you should know like whatever you're recommending here, you should know how it works. So just throw in marketing cloud, you just see first journey, like you just throw marketing cloud. They may ask questions like how does marketing cloud work, right? How does it connect to Salesforce? Is it a package? Is it like you installed something? They may ask all these questions. So definitely It will come up. You recommend some Salesforce product, make sure you know how it works, right? Also outside products too. Oh, one more thing, like about mobile publisher, like that was one of the areas that I see here and there that people throw mobile publisher, and I start asking them questions. How does it work? How do you test, right? How do you distribute before it goes and publish, right?
Mhm.
So make sure you know all this.
Yeah.
First is a managed package, you have to install that, and then you have to package it up, and then you have test flights, which you know how you distribute for testers. You make sure that there are two versions or one version for iOS versus Android. So definitely you should have that. You have to read all the documentation from Salesforce, like how it works, and definitely do a POC.
And so I'm going to stop recording, but Chris, thank you for doing this and for presenting, giving us the experience. A lot of us aren't familiar with it. It's the first one I've seen myself. And Arian, thank you for being a
Yeah.
judge and giving us that
No.
experience as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It was great. Really. I know from my end, it was appreciate